From the moment Maya Carter stepped onto Silverwing Airfield, the tiny black woman in a beat-up t-shirt and fraying canvas sneakers became the camp's joke. They called her the Charity Tire Patcher, sneering at her ragged appearance, and booted her out of the simulator just for daring to dream of the cockpit. They sabotaged her flight exercise, jeered as she failed, and tore her application to shreds in front of the crowd. No one suspected that this quiet woman was Lieutenant Colonel Maya Carter, the F-22 legend, record-setting ace, and the true secret owner of Silverwing. That changed the day Maya personally piloted a Raptor to a perfect touchdown on the runway, leaving everyone at Silverwing speechless, their privileged arrogance buried under Arizona's red dust. The Arizona sun beat down like whips, making the ground of Silverwing Airfield the ultimate symbol of American elite power, even more blistering, harsh, and unwelcoming. The roar of jet engines and the triumphant laughter of trust fund pilot kids in designer jumpsuits mingled with the scent of expensive jet fuel, creating an atmosphere both festive and haughty. Here, every handshake reeked of money, and every barrier to ordinary people was erected by luxury and untouchable privilege. An aging bus rattled to a stop at the airfield gates. In the blistering heat, a small figure descended. A sun-kissed face, hair neatly braided, and a steady gaze. Maya Carter. She carried a threadbare tote bag over her shoulder, wore scuffed canvas shoes, ripped knee jeans, and a once-white t-shirt now faded to cream. Against Silverwing's polished splendor, her plainness stood out like a scratch on a velvet gown. No sooner had Maya reached the security checkpoint than the gaze of every trainee turned on her. 2 white guards, scalp gleaming, dark sunglasses reflecting the sun, blocked her path. One crossed his arms, squinted down at her, and spat out with contempt, "Hey, you've got the wrong place. This isn't a charity tire patching center, especially not for people like you." His words were both a thinly veiled dismissal and a knife to her pride. The racial bias dripped from every syllable. Maya didn't reply. She just curled the corner of her lip, her eyes seeming to pierce the protective bubble of privilege they'd built around themselves. Around the gate, clusters of white trainees, faces familiar from finance magazines and social media feeds, ambled by, whispering and pointing. Their Silverwing-branded jumpsuits, shiny pilot boots, and gold watches glittered in the sun. Half-mocking, half-derisive laughter rang out. Nobody bothered to hide their contempt. "Got a camera? Film this." One trainee hoisted his phone, zooming in on her tattered clothes, her dark skin, and calloused, work-worn hands. Inside the camp's social media live stream, comments exploded. Is this a flight school or a charity drive? Who let her in here? Look, she's in the wrong den of dragons. Maya tightened her grip on her tote, squared her shoulders, and fixed her eyes on the distant hangars, the place where her dream of flight threatened to be crushed at the very first gate. She knew that each step on Silverwing's tarmac today was more than a test of her skill. It was a trial of her dignity as a black woman reaching for a sky guarded by a white, privileged class. As the glass doors into the registration area clicked shut behind Maya, spiteful laughter and whispered taunts swirled around her like the choking smoke of old privilege. Maya breathed softly, tightening her grip on the tote to steady her trembling hands. Yet she squared her shoulders and kept her eyes fixed on the registration desk, the threshold she had to cross if she was going to get any closer to her dream. The counters gleamed under harsh neon lights, and behind them a row of giant screens broadcast glossy promos of Silverwing Airfield. Radiant white trainees in immaculate jumpsuits, beaming beside brand-new fighter jets. On the security camera feed, Maya's image appeared in stark contrast. Small, out of place amid a sea of bright uniforms. No sooner had she set her battered tote on the counter than the camp's most notorious influencers descended. Brandon Miller, his brown hair a deliberate mess and excitement shining in his eyes, raised his phone without a greeting. "Hey, everyone, what's poppin' at Silverwing today? Look, our tire shop candidate just got off mop duty, right?" He panned from Maya's braided hair down to her scuffed canvas shoes and faded t-shirt, lingering on her dark skin. The circle around him burst into jeers, some nudging Brandon to egg him on. "Let's film a Teach a Black Person to Fly challenge. Total viral gold." Emily Davis, blonde and bold, lips painted cherry red, leaned in under the guise of a whisper, but loud enough for the whole desk to hear. "You really think Silverwing will let someone like you wear a jumpsuit? That uniform doesn't go with skin that dark." Her words cut sharper than a blade. The clerks at the desk paused, their eyes glittering with the thrill of sanctioned cruelty. Brandon continued the live stream, reading the flood of comments. "She looks like janitorial staff. Silverwing's finally taking charity cases, huh?" Then he turned to his friends with a mocking grin. "Place your bets. How many interviews will our tire shop girl survive before she's back in the kitchen?" Voices shouted guesses. "Not past round 1. She'll quit by day 2. Their half-jokes turned Maya's humiliation into mass entertainment for thousands online. A handful of black trainees looked down at their feet, powerless to intervene. The organizers' indifference made the air even heavier, as if this public shaming were just another unspoken camp tradition. Maya said nothing, her steadfast gaze meeting each crushing stare. She understood that a single apology or explanation would break her then and there. Her composure, and the faint, determined smile she allowed herself, infuriated them further, like a direct repudiation of their assumed right to demean. The registration desk stayed brightly lit. Maya's application lay on the glass countertop, but the clerk barely skimmed it before sneering. Above, the live stream camera zoomed in on Maya's dark hand clutching the pen, as though verifying her out-of-place presence. Outside the registration hall, biased laughter and cruel commentary continued to echo. "Let her go through. She'll be back wiping floors in a few days." Amid the wave of scorn, Maya never wavered from her objective. The interview room down the corridor, her last slender hope. And somewhere in those taunting voices, a flicker of unease began to stir. A realization that they might, for once, have picked the wrong prey. The moment Maya's footsteps left the registration desk, the gleeful laughter behind her rolled on like the aftershock of a whirlwind of mockery. But that was only the overture. The corridor leading to the training area laid bare Silverwing's true values, heirloom asset lists, private school badges, resume lines bought with daddy's money. A gaggle of wealthy trainees lined the wall like sentries, their jumpsuits a steel-plated armor of pride. Rachel White, her platinum hair gleaming, scion of a powerful oil dynasty, gave Maya a half sneer, then casually crumpled a napkin and hurled it at her shoulder. The message was clear: you don't belong here. Tyler King, towering, with a sneering tone bred of arrogance, he was the grandson of a staunchly conservative state senator, didn't bother hiding his contempt. "Bet you've never seen a real jet outside the TV, huh? Silverwing's for chosen people. There's no seat here for janitors." As he spoke, Tyler dropped an empty energy drink can at Maya's feet, watching to see if she'd stoop to pick it up. The other trainees joined in. Some flung paper scraps, others tossed snack wrappers, and soon the hall echoed with snide commentary. "Looks like Silverwing just hired a new trash crew. I reckon she's here to scavenge aluminum cans, not fly." Each insult, each cheap projectile struck like a small, repeated stab. Their prejudice wasn't just about her skin, it was about her clothes, her posture, everything they could weaponize. Brandon Miller filmed every second, always pointing his phone at Maya. Whenever a friend cracked up, he zoomed in on her worn canvas shoes, then lifted to her faded tote. His live stream flooded with mocking hashtags that shot to the top of trending. Tire shop pilot, Shasta kitchen pilot, Shasta charity flyer, not our wings. Even the security coordinator, tasked with keeping order, stood to the side, smirking as if this public shaming were an essential Silverwing ritual. Their callousness only fueled the cruelty. In a distant corner, a few black trainees avoided eye contact. James Bell, clutching his backpack straps until his knuckles whitened, glanced at Maya before dropping his head. He knew that defending her would instantly direct the spear of ridicule onto himself. At the peak of the harassment, Rachel strode up, planting herself in Maya's path. Leaning in close so her breath brushed Maya's cheek, she hissed, "Listen carefully. Don't you know this is Silverwing? Here, people like you belong cleaning floors, not piloting jets." Each word felt like a hammer blow. Rachel's clique burst into laughter, some discreetly snapped photos, others posted to their stories with the caption, "First day and already got a janitor." Silverwing experience. Maya remained unmoved, her small frame steady, her gaze icily fixed on Rachel. Her calm defiance once again infuriated the entitled crowd, for to those raised to give orders, a black woman who refused to bow or plead was simply unacceptable. From down the hall, Brandon held his camera inches from Maya's face and announced to his viewers with a triumphant laugh, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our number tire shop pilot. Day 1. Will she grab a broom or a yoke?" Outside, the Arizona sun continued to scorch, and inside Silverwing's corridors the air simmered with the heat of privilege and the cruelty of those who believed they had the right to judge. The hallway of Silverwing's training area still crackled with derisive laughter and lingering racist jeers when the tap-tap of high heels echoed across the marble floor. A hush fell as Candace Roswell appeared, embodiment of this place's power and pride. The only daughter of Silverwing's chairman, Candace ruled the airfield like a queen without a throne, the living symbol of unbroken generational privilege. She strode down the corridor as if no one else had a right to occupy it but her. Her snow-white jumpsuit was perfectly tailored, the Silverwing logo stitched in gold thread. Aviator shades flashed diamonds on her nose bridge. Platinum hair swept up in a sleek bun, posture flawless, eyes icy. Candace was the very definition of above it all, from the way she looked at the world to the beat of her footsteps. She stopped dead in front of Maya. The entire hallway held its breath. Influencers clustered, certain they were about to witness a spectacle whose outcome was already decided. Brandon Miller, ever mindful of his live stream audience, zoomed in on Candace's every movement, the little ding of new viewers seasoning the scene. Candace offered a thin, polite smile, then surveyed Maya from the top of her braided crown down to her soaked canvas sneakers, rivaling the chill in her gaze. Leaning in close enough that Maya could feel her breath, Candace's words, quiet but venomous, hissed out so every ear in the corridor caught them. "Want to be a pilot? Wake up from that dream. Here, people like you, black people, have no place. Do you know why Silverwing has never had anyone like you before? Because the skies belong only to those with real power. Capisce?" Laughter erupted again, ricocheting off the gleaming glass walls. Candace lifted an ice-cold bottled water, the premium brand the organizers reserved for their trust fund protégés, and suddenly shoved it against Maya's feet. The chilled liquid seeped into the worn canvas, spreading dark stains and splashing against Maya's bare ankles. A gift for cool feet, that way you won't stink up your neighborhood tomorrow. These words weren't just contemptuous. They were raw, public humiliation in front of hundreds of eyes. Cameras clicked and livestream zoomed in on Maya, standing in a puddle, her tattered tote dripping. Within moments, the image spawned memes tagged # charity pilot, # not our wings, # stay in your lane across social media. Behind Candace, Rachel White and Tyler King watched with delighted smirks, as if enjoying a primetime performance. Emily Davis, Candace's best friend, sidled up and whispered with feigned sympathy, "That was gentle enough. This place isn't for you. Better know your place." In a distant corner, a few black trainees, once silent observers, turned away, not in agreement, but in fear of Candace's power and the collective force behind her. In this world, a single taunt or crooked look was enough to make you the target of a privilege-driven storm. Maya remained rooted in place, her feet cold and wet, droplets streaking the polished marble. She did not bow her head, evade Candace's glare, or wipe away the water. That silence, that refusal to be victimized, was in Candace's eyes the ultimate insult. Maya daring to refuse the role of the powerless, refusing to shrink under the weight of the Roswell legacy. For a heartbeat, the corridor became a stage, Maya the backdrop to ostentation, wealth, and the elegance of the elite. Laughter, camera shutters, and vicious commentary formed an impenetrable wall. Yet in Maya's eyes there was only one focus ahead. Wading through these muddy trials, she would not stop. The cold from the water Candace had just shoved onto Maya's shoes still clung to her ankles, but the real chill came from the hundreds of eyes surrounding her, and the thousands more peering through phone screens. In an instant, the entire Silverwing hallway became a massive film set, where Maya Carter, simply by existing, had unwittingly been cast as the lead in the privileged's tragicomedy. The moment Maya lifted her foot out of the puddle, laughter crashed behind her like waves. Brandon Miller immediately seized the moment, zooming his camera in on her soaked canvas shoes, then panning up to her dark-skinned hands gripping the tote bag's straps, and finally tilting back to capture Maya's unwavering stare. He swung the lens to Candace, to Rachel, and back to Maya, each deliberate frame recasting Maya as the pitiful joke in their private narrative. "See that, everyone? Our #1 kitchen pilot at Silverwing. Get ready for her next challenge. Cleaning planes instead of flying them." Live comments flooded the screen. "Why's this top-tier school even letting someone like her in? Put her back where she belongs. Just look at her face. She'll never take to the skies." The air crackled with collective malice and glee. A few trainees recorded Instagram stories, snapping shots of Maya's dripping clothes and slapping on "Not Our Pilot" stickers. Hashtags like "Your Crash Dummy," "Your No-Fly Zone for You," and "Silverwing Charity" exploded across social media, dominating the group chats of prestigious school students. Worst of all was the organizers' open complicity. Instead of intervening, a Silverwing staffer even smiled and urged the influencers on, "Film away, guys. Let's get our camp trending." A middle-aged manager strolled by, shrugged, and told a colleague, "Clients love real content. She is just part of the show." No one stepped in to stop it. No one cared that this public shaming had far surpassed a harmless prank. The Silverwing system itself, long accustomed to protecting a privileged few, had become the engine of cruelty, thrusting Maya into a whirlpool of mass entertainment. In a distant corner, James Bell, a freshman trainee of color, cowered behind a pillar. His eyes tracked Maya with a mix of fear and sympathy. Fear of being dragged into the storm of ridicule if he spoke up. Sympathy for his own dreams, already seeing the peril that might befall him should he dare to resist. Nearby, Linda Nguyen, daughter of an Asian immigrant family, stood bowed, clutching her application folder. She longed to approach Maya and offer a word of comfort, but Candace's icy glare froze her in place, trapped within the isolating bubble the system had erected. Amid the bustling crowd, Maya was a small black mark on Silverwing's gleaming white marble. Every step she took was recorded, broadcast across countless social feeds, edited, mocked, set to roast them all soundtracks, and looped endlessly to drown out whatever dignity she had left. Yet even surrounded by this modern humiliation, where a single tap on share could spread one's suffering to tens of thousands, Maya held an unbreakable silence. Her eyes, even when they glistened, never wandered from the corridor's end, the training room, where she knew the real challenge awaited behind that door. Out there, on thousands of phone screens, the image of Maya Carter, a black woman in waterlogged sneakers with a resolute gaze, had become fodder for gossip, jokes, and judgment. Little did they know that, at that very moment, a legend was being kindled, right in the eye of the contemptuous storm. Mocking laughter still rang in Maya's ears as she stepped into the field training hangar, the place where countless dreams of flight had once taken off. But for her, it was the starting line of a cruel setup, a play in which she was forced to star as Joke of the Year. Before she could even inspect the simulator, a squad of trainees, led by Brandon Miller, Tyler King, Rachel White, and Emily Davis, swarmed her. Brandon pretended to be friendly, giving her a gentle shove towards Simulator Pod 4, where their cameras were already rolling, phones live streaming from every angle. "All right, it's your turn, tire shop pilot," Brandon shouted, making sure all eyes were on her. "Let's see how good a floor guy flies a jet." Tyler shot a mischievous look at Candace. While Maya fumbled with the seat straps, the group secretly tampered with the secondary control panel, maxing out wind sensitivity, injecting false radar alarms, flooding the display with static interference, slowing input responses by 2 or 3 seconds, and disabling early warnings. Rachel stood guard at the door, deliberately blocking the supervisor's view, and Emily pretended to jot notes but was actually filming every confused twitch of Maya's face. Candace, in her flawless white jumpsuit, leaned against the simulator pod with arms crossed, a cold half-smile on her lips. "Everyone ready?" she drawled. "Record this. Watch how the black chef crashes a jet." Silence fell for a heartbeat before the hangar erupted in thunderous laughter. Maya took a steady breath, tightened her harness, and scanned the gauges. She sensed something was wrong, but every eye and camera forced her on. There was no turning back. She initiated the takeoff sequence as trained, but from the first second the console flashed "System Error." The radar falsely warned the jet was veering off the runway. Control lag made every command sluggish. The weather feed screeched a phantom sandstorm. The screen jittered as if struck. "What's wrong? Need me to clean your windshield?" Tyler jeered, barely concealing his condescension. Candace snickered and cut the cabin mic so Maya's calls for help went unheard. Brandon kept rolling, live streaming as he quipped, "Bet she thinks she's holding a mop, not a yoke." Amid the chaos, Maya fought to regain control, but the sabotaged settings made balance impossible. Less than 30 seconds after throttle up, a blaring alarm shrieked, "Crash!" On the screen, the simulated F-22 cartwheeled into the desert, disappearing in a plume of red dust. The hangar exploded with cheers and applause as if they were watching a top-tier comedy. Brandon zoomed in on Maya's stunned face, then swung the camera to his cheering friends. "See? Let a black person touch the cockpit, and this happens." Rachel slapped Candace's arm. "You staged that better than any TikTok skit." Moments later, new memes flooded social media. Images of Maya dazed at the controls overlaid with "when you let a janitor touch a jet," and hashtags "crash dummy," "no-fly zone for you," and "stay in your lane" dominating elite student feeds. The other trainees, half from fear, half from safety, first laughter, joined in sharing, commenting, even filming themselves mocking the simulator crash. The hangar air grew thick with the scent of failure, humiliation, and privilege's cruelty. Maya rose slowly, her eyes burning with a mix of hurt and resolve. She knew this wouldn't be the last time her confidence was tested. But with every step she took away from the simulator, every deep breath she claimed, Maya's spirit ignited a flame of defiance, one those entitled fools could never understand. The mocking laughter and jeers hadn't even died down when the hangar's atmosphere suddenly turned heavy. Maya had just unclipped her harness, still reeling from the simulated crash, when the steady tap of worn leather shoes sounded on the polished floor. A tall, commanding figure appeared. Marcus Drayton, the head coach of Silverwing, drawing every eye in the bay. Drayton's face was sharp-boned, his salt-and-pepper hair buzz-cut in a military style, and his eyes shone with cold clarity beneath thick brows. He stopped directly in front of Maya, not bothering to glance at the simulator's screen, as if its outcome were already obvious. "You've wasted my time," he intoned, his gravelly voice low, and as sharp as a blade against stone. "Silverwing isn't for people who don't know who they are, especially people like you." He punctuated the last words with a deliberate pause, heavy with racial and class undertones. A few trainees erupted in laughter, and someone whistled encouragement. Rachel White clapped first, then the entire hangar joined in, as if to applaud the verdict just delivered. Drayton calmly snatched Maya's application folder from the clerk's hand, flipped through it with bored disdain, and lingered over the line marked "Race, Black, African American." He made no effort to hide his contempt, his gaze flicking up to Maya's face before scanning the rest of her resume. Each achievement and experience she'd painstakingly listed in hopes of touching the sky one day. Then, in one decisive motion, like a performance staged for dozens of onlookers, he lifted the folder high, tore it to shreds, and lobbed the scraps into the trash can at Maya's feet. "Go home," he said softly, without raising his voice but with the force of a guillotine's blade. "We don't need any more floor sweepers on this team." Brandon Miller panned in close, live-streaming the cascade of paper, while other trainees snapped photos of this glorious moment, captioning them, "New high score for Yash Shaw's tire shop pilot." Silverwing doesn't hire janitors. Tire shop pilot, Hopon charity flyer, and Shaka Crash Dummy flooded every newsfeed, each comment another dagger to Maya's pride. Someone patted Tyler on the shoulder. "Make a meme out of this. It's too good." Behind Drayton, Candace stood arms crossed, a triumphant gleam in her eye, as though Maya's humiliation were a lesson for anyone daring to dream beyond the boundaries the Roswell legacy had set for Silverwing. Maya remained motionless, her fingers clutching the worn tote. Her face betrayed no emotion as she met Drayton's gaze one last time, not in plea, but in the quiet resolve of someone who understands deep pain and has learned to bear it. Without a word, she picked up her bag, adjusted the strap, and silently exited the hangar. The laughter, applause, and camera flashes trailed her like fresh scars. Her shredded applications, stained and crumpled in the trash beside Candace and Drayton, stood as a stark symbol of a dream torn apart without mercy. Every chat group and internal forum buzzed with glee at her expense. Yet James Bell, Linda Nguyen, and a handful of other trainees on the margins watched Maya go with silent sorrow and helplessness. None dared to speak, for the power here had turned kindness into a risk. And while all of Silverwing reveled in that collective mockery, no one realized that Maya's quiet departure carried a steely will and a latent strength no one had yet seen. Amid the sea of humiliation, Maya's faith, though shredded like those pages, still smoldered, waiting to blaze across the sky that belonged to those truly worthy. The mocking laughter and applause still echoed behind Maya with each step, like invisible lashes on her back. But that wasn't the end of her humiliation. No sooner had she left the hangar than the Silverwing corridor buzzed with the arrival of reporters, familiar faces from aviation journalism and entertainment media. News of the oddity at Silverwing, the only black woman in this elite flight camp failing disastrously, spread quickly, drawing every click-hungry outlet. Cameras, flashes, and microphones zeroed in on Silverwing's stars. Candace Roswell with her triumphant smile, Brandon Miller clutching his phone to capture the moment, and Rachel White and Tyler King eagerly recounting today's unforgettable training session. Reporters fired off rapid questions, all designed to highlight privilege and underscore Maya's oddness. How does it feel to see an outsider try her luck at Silverwing? Do you think Silverwing should admit more special cases? Do you believe anyone can become a pilot, regardless of background? Candace folded her arms and gazed loftily into the distance as she answered in her superior tone, "Silverwing is extremely demanding. We respect diversity, but everyone must know their place. Some people should carefully consider their own abilities before stepping into a program like this. The sky isn't for wild dreams." Her words were broadcast over footage of Maya pelted with paper and doused in water, yet no one offered condemnation, only silent agreement that it all made perfect sense. Then aviation reporter Jason Reed of the Aviation Star, the nation's leading aviation magazine, jostled to the front, excitement obvious on his face. He didn't even wait for Maya's introduction. He lunged forward as she quietly gathered her scattered papers. "Excuse me, Miss Carter, what do you think you can do here besides cleaning?" He let cleaning hang in the air like a knife, front and center before the cameras and the giggling crowd, each drawn-out syllable nailing Maya to the lowest rung in their eyes. Maya paused, her eyes flickering for a moment before returning to calm. She said nothing, simply stood taller, slung her tote back onto her shoulder, and walked right past Jason Reed, leaving behind the laughter, camera shutters, and the mocking refrain. What else can she do besides clean? Images of Maya in her wet canvas shoes and battered tote, eyes unwavering, flooded news sites and evening broadcasts with headlines like, "Bitter defeat for the black woman dreaming of flight at Silverwing Airfield." From mopping floors to simulator crashes, a dream that never took off. Silverwing's lesson to the dreamers. On social media, close-up shots of her tilted face, slender shoulders, and solitary stride were turned into memes and cruel commentary. Know your place. Go home, this sky isn't for you. Yet, in the shadows of that vast corridor, a few rare gazes, like James Bell's and Linda Nguyen's, followed Maya with pity, rage, and helplessness. They knew that a single act of solidarity would make them the next targets of privilege's storm of outrage. And Maya herself, caught in the whirlwind of public scorn, with all of America watching through screens, walked on without looking back, each breath reminding her that sometimes, to reach the sky, you first have to endure the hell of contempt. The image of Maya Carter, the black woman with her frayed tote bag and unwavering gaze, continued to dominate the headlines, fodder for cruel jokes and relentless memes that seemed determined to erase every last chance she had. But then time marched on to Silverwing's most important day of the year, VIP Demo Day. This showcase was reserved for the ultra-wealthy, shareholders, airline executives, international press, and famous trust fund kids. The airfield gleamed with flags and banners. The roar of jet engines mingled with the clink of champagne glasses as all eyes focused on Silverwing's star trainees, Candace Roswell in her gold-embroidered white jumpsuit, Brandon Miller in his red leather jacket, and Rachel White and Tyler King laughing beside the line of polished private jets. Rows of business jets stood at attention while the media set up cameras, and VIP guests chatted eagerly, betting on the jaw-dropping displays that these heirs of privilege would deliver. Everyone was certain that today the sky belonged exclusively to the elite, where no one would remember a name once dragged through the mud. Then, a thunderous sonic boom tore the air apart. The atmosphere of entitlement was cleaved in two by the roar of an F-22 Raptor's engines, the U.S. Air Force's cutting-edge fighter, emerging like a silver phantom against Arizona's blazing sky. Against the brilliant blue, the F-22 swept low over Silverwing, banking through 3 perfect rolls and executing aerobatics with surgical precision. Maneuvers no trainee or stunt pilot had ever matched. Every whisper and laugh died instantly, replaced by stunned gasps, wide-eyed amazement, and a flicker of envy in the gaze of the trust fund crowd. Scattered applause broke out as the jet's wheels kissed the runway, tires shrieking on the immaculate tarmac and sending a swirl of red dust into the air. The canopy lifted. A wisp of oxygen smoke curled up. The pilot climbed out, clad in a sleek Air Force flight suit, oxygen mask removed to reveal meticulously braided hair, resilient brown skin, and cold, confident eyes. All eyes turned. It was Maya Carter herself. Gone was the petite woman with the tattered tote bag. Gone was the kitchen pilot of cruel memes. In her place stood a symbol of strength and defiance, an undeniable icon standing before those who had once humiliated her. A hush fell over the airfield. Brandon Miller's phone hit the ground, his smile locked in disbelief. Rachel White and Tyler King stood frozen beside Candace Roswell, her gleaming white jumpsuit suddenly muted and meaningless in the presence of a true combat pilot descending from a legendary F-22. Cameras pivoted, the press swarmed Maya, and a halo of flashbulbs crowned her, an illuminating counterpoint to the darkness she had endured. Silverwing's commander and senior staff exchanged bewildered glances, while shareholders murmured among themselves, Who flew that F-22? Who authorized it? Who is she? Then, as Maya peeled off her flight gloves and stood tall before the VIP row, not a soul dared speak. The poise of someone who had walked through hell, had her application shredded, had become a public punchline, had transformed her into a goddess among a crowd that once believed its privilege unassailable. Reporters, one after another, shifted from shock to excitement, hastily flipping open notebooks, adjusting microphones, and changing their tone. Excuse me, who is this pilot? Who just performed that demonstration? Did the U.S. Air Force dispatch a representative to Silverwing? Everyone at Silverwing, from trainees and coaches to those who mocked her, could only stare around in stunned realization that perhaps the sky never truly belonged to them. In that very moment the tables had turned. Maya Carter, the new idol of the skies, had returned to Silverwing not to ask for permission, but to seize her destiny in the very place that had once torn her dreams to shreds. A heavy silence settled over Silverwing, as thick and suffocating as if every breath had been sucked from the air. Everyone's eyes drifted wordlessly to the makeshift stage, where Maya Carter stood tall beside the silver F-22 Raptor, her flight suit glowing with an icy aura of authority and courage. Then, from the military helicopter parked on the far edge of the runway, a formation of U.S. Air Force officers stepped out in perfect unison. Leading them was General Luther Hamilton, the only black officer ever to command at the highest levels of the Air Force, a living symbol of resilience and excellence, and an inspiration to generations of pilots of color. General Hamilton strode forward, his sharp-featured face shadowed beneath his officer's cap, his full-dress uniform blazing with medals. The moment he appeared, every whisper died. He took the microphone from his aide and swept his gaze over the VIP stands. The Silverwing leadership, major shareholders, and the assembled trust fund heirs sat in stunned silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," his deep, resonant voice cut through the hush, "I have the honor, here, before the world's media and the U.S. aviation community, to reveal the true identity of the pilot who has just executed that phenomenal F-22 demonstration." He turned toward Maya, beaming with pride, then addressed the entire field. "Colonel Maya Carter, the legendary F-22 pilot, who holds the record for 16 continuous hours of combat flight, former commander of Phantom Wolf Squadron, a veteran of countless classified USAF missions, and most importantly, the anonymous founder and owner of the Silverwing Foundation." Gasping breaths rippled through the airfield. Cameras pivoted instantly to Maya. Brandon Miller's phone clattered to the ground. Rachel White and Tyler King clutched their seats, faces ashen. Candace Roswell, Silverwing's self-styled queen, went pale, her knees buckling as she sank to her chair, unable to process the revelation. Coach Marcus Drayton stood rigid, his face flushing red, then draining white in an instant. He dared not meet Maya's gaze, as memories of shredded applications and vicious taunts themselves became an indictment of his career and character. All across Silverwing, chaos reigned. Those accustomed to entitlement were shoved into darkness, while the one they had mocked and rejected now stood at the pinnacle, radiating the power and prestige of a living legend. In the VIP stands, shame, disbelief, and trembling uncertainty mingled in every face. Only Maya, her flight suit gleaming, skin radiant in the sun, eyes steely, remained unshakable, the undeniable focus of admiration, respect, and a little fear. She stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over every face that had scorned her, every ally in their campaign of humiliation. She spoke no words of retaliation, offered no triumphant smile, only the calm dignity of someone who had endured the worst and now strode into her rightful place of honor. Her presence alone compelled Silverwing's self-styled royalty to bow their heads, unable to look history in the eye. The press fell silent, then erupted into a fresh wave of questions, no longer mocking, but filled with wonder, respect, and a thirst to understand the pilot who shattered every barrier of race, status, privilege, and prejudice. And there, in that charged stillness, Maya gave General Hamilton a quiet nod, her eyes shining with profound pride. Now, she was the one shaping Silverwing's destiny. The very place that had once torn her hopes asunder now bowed before the legend they had so cruelly denied. The first scattered applause rang out, then swelled like a tidal wave, filling every corner of Silverwing Airfield. Hundreds of people rose to their feet, hands that had once eagerly hit share on memes mocking Maya now beat in unison, shattering every boundary between the powerful and the powerless, between the outsider and the true sovereign of the skies. Before the stunned conspirators could recover, the legendary figures of American aviation began to step forward. The atmosphere was reverent yet electric, as icons of the industry turned their attention to the black woman who had emerged from the shadows of prejudice. From the VIP stands, Olivia Brooks, Lockheed Martin's chief engineer and one of the minds behind America's most storied fighter jets, strode confidently to the center. Under her respectful gaze, she took the mic and declared in a resonant, unwavering voice, "On behalf of Lockheed Martin, I'm proud to announce that from this day forward, a new advanced fighter research facility will bear the name Maya Carter Laboratory. This isn't just an honor for one exceptional individual. It's a statement that dignity, skill, and determination, not background or skin color, are the true future of American aviation." The crowd erupted. Young engineers blinked back tears, and trainees of color felt the sky above them open wider for the first time. No sooner had the applause died down than Jack Simmons, the venerable aviation historian with silver hair and an unshakable faith in progress, lifted his microphone from the press dais. His voice trembled with emotion as he proclaimed, "After decades of chronicling America's greatest aviation pioneers, I am honored to announce that today, Maya Carter's name will be enshrined in the National Air and Space Museum's Hall of Fame. A permanent exhibit celebrating her journey past every barrier of prejudice will inspire generations to come." Across social media, #RaptorQueen and #SilverwingReborn exploded, smashing sharing records. From high schoolers in Atlanta to aeronautical students in Los Angeles, from underprivileged neighborhoods to elite private academies, Maya Carter's story spread as a beacon of triumph over adversity. In the radiant late afternoon light, FAA Administrator Daniel McIntyre climbed the podium, fixing Maya with a solemn gaze and a voice that sounded like a sacred vow. "For the first time in FAA history, we will establish the Maya Carter Award, honoring the nation's top pilot each year, regardless of race, background, gender, or any barrier at all. Maya Carter embodies the unchanging truth that the skies belong only to those who dare to rise above every limit." The crowd exploded into cheers. Even the Silverwing trainees who had stood silent or turned their backs on Maya now applauded without restraint. James Bell and Linda Nguyen could hardly hold back tears, while reporters feverishly rewrote their headlines. "Black female pilot becomes an American legend. Silverwing reborn. From symbol of privilege to home of dreams." Raptor Queen. How Maya Carter rewrote aviation history. Off to the side, Candace Roswell's head bowed, her fists clenched at her skirt's hem, lips bitten raw. She could not meet Maya's gaze. Marcus Drayton stood frozen like a statue, remorse flooding his mind as every cruel word he'd ever spoken turned back to haunt his reputation. Above it all stood Maya Carter, shoulders squared, her Air Force flight suit glowing in the golden sunset, silently lifting her eyes to the endless blue. She knew that today was more than her moment of honor. It was the destiny of every dreamer on the margins, when wings, once clipped by society, would finally taste the freedom of the sky. Amid the thunderous applause and the relentless strobe of media flashbulbs, Maya Carter maintained an unassailable calm. She strode slowly past the very people who had once sneered at her, who'd used every dirty trick to trample her dignity. Her eyes swept over their ashen faces without a flicker of hesitation, her steps measured and sure, as if each footfall were a blade slicing through Silverwing's flimsy veneer of privilege. She stopped dead in her tracks, directly before the crowd of onlookers, right where Candace Roswell and her clique had stood, gleefully dumping cold water on Maya's shoes for the world to see. Maya bent down, picked up the empty water bottle that had been flicked to the edge of the floor next to a gleaming steel trash bin, and held it aloft for everyone to see. With one sharp glance at Candace, enough to summon every memory of that bitter moment, Maya hurled the bottle into the trash, her motion crisp and decisive. Her voice rang out, calm but cutting. "Trash belongs with trash." The words weren't shouted, but they carried across the hangar like a verdict. The entire airfield fell silent, the hush heavier than any insult hurled before. Cameras everywhere captured the moment. And before long, "Huck Trash Belongs" with trash was trending online, an unerasable sentence condemning every hand that had helped destroy Maya's spirit. Candace Roswell, once Silverwing's self-proclaimed queen, stood frozen, knuckles white as she gripped the armrest, her makeup streaked and face ashen with shame and fear. In that charged stillness, Maya didn't need a triumphant shout or bitter revenge. Just one simple line, delivered like a final, unwavering judgment. Moments later, a board representative stepped forward to announce, "Effective immediately, Candace Roswell is expelled from Silverwing. Her privileges revoked. All acts of humiliation, discrimination, and policy violations will be subject to a full public investigation." A ripple of stunned chatter swept through the influencers and trust fund kids who had egged her on, now broken and tearful, unable even to look Maya in the eye. Maya turned without a backward glance, her gaze settling on Marcus Drayton, the man who'd once torn her application to shreds and declared her unworthy. Her voice, cool and unwavering, cut through the mounting tension. "Sir, you taught people to fly, but forgot that anyone who flies too low only crawls among worms." Drayton froze, his jaw clenching as sweat beaded on his brow. Around him, the Silverwing board declared, "Also effective immediately, Marcus Drayton is relieved of all leadership duties and stripped of his privileges. An independent review board will reassess the entire admissions process, training protocols, and any discriminatory conduct within this camp." This time the applause was different. Not adoration, but the sound of liberation. Cameras and news feeds blazed with headlines. Candace Roswell, from queen to pariah. Marcus Drayton's fall from power. Raptor Queen topples Silverwing, clears path for justice. Maya Carter walked on in perfect silence, not needing a boisterous victory lap or a bitter farewell. Her quiet dignity had already delivered the ultimate lesson. True strength lies not in vengeance, but in rising from the ashes of injustice and lighting the way for others to soar. The grounds at Silverwing fell into stunned silence after the old regime's disgraceful downfall. As sobs echoed, ashen faces and designer suits bowed and quietly withdrew from the airfield. A wholly new wave began to spread. Stronger, calmer, and more unwavering than ever before. At its heart stood Maya Carter, her expression resolute, her bright eyes still framed by the F-22 flight suit she had yet to shed. She addressed the crowd of hundreds of cameras and thousands of watchers, with the famed Raptor behind her, and a lineup of America's top aviation and military leaders at her back. Maya raised her chin and spoke with crisp authority, each word resonating like history in the making, not a cry of defiance, but a decree of genuine justice. "I have just finalized the acquisition of 80% of Silverwing's shares. As of today, this place will no longer stand as a fortress of privilege. Silverwing will become a tuition-free academy for every young person across America who yearns to touch the sky, and here, opportunity will belong solely to talent, determination, and passion, regardless of skin color, background, or social status." A pregnant pause followed, then erupted into cheers, applause, and tears of relief from those who had once been turned away. Trainees of color, underprivileged students, even those who had only dared to gaze at Silverwing's gates from afar, now wept together, embracing one another in a surge of unprecedented liberation and hope. Maya continued, her gaze softening but her voice gaining strength. New R&D labs, awards, and scholarship funds will bear my name, not as a tribute to one person, but as a reminder to all future generations. Only fairness, courage, and ability deserve to be enshrined in the history of American aviation. Anyone who dares to defy prejudice, even after having their application shredded or being turned away, can still write a new future. Reporters scrambled to capture every word. Journalists who had once mocked her now quivered as they elbowed forward, desperate for an interview or a commemorative photo with the legendary pilot. Major networks broadcast her declaration live, cementing the moment as a landmark in American history. All over Silverwing, new lab signs went up overnight. Maya Carter Advanced Aviation Lab, Maya Carter Aviation Justice Scholarship Fund, Maya Carter Gallery, a beacon of aspiration. Next year's application pool expanded beyond anything Silverwing had ever seen. Thousands of submissions from rural communities, people of color, minority groups, and students previously rejected for lack of credentials, all evaluated purely on genuine ability. Behind them, Candace Roswell, Marcus Drayton, and the old guard sat in muted disgrace at the back of the hall, shadows of their former selves in the wake of this justice wave. No one sought their photo. No one requested their comment. Every spotlight now shone on those bold enough to shatter false barriers. The air at Silverwing buzzed with handshakes, tears of joy, and chants of Maya Carter, like a new oath. The academy, once haunted by racism and privilege, was reborn as a monument to dreams that dare to defy the so-called birthright. Online, number Raptor Queen, number Silverwing Reborn, and number Maya Carter Foundation dominated feeds shared by politicians, educators, veterans, pilots, scientists, and millions of students across the nation. And at the center of it all, Maya, quietly smiling, knew that from this day forward, American aviation history and justice had turned the page into an entirely new chapter. Maya Carter's historic decision swept across America like a tsunami, breaking down every invisible barrier that once stood between dreams and the sky. Within days, Silverwing, once an impregnable fortress of privilege, became the sacred crossroads for aspirations that had never dared speak their names. Young cadets poured in from big cities, rural towns, and underprivileged neighborhoods. No longer just white faces, but Black, Latino, Asian, Arab, and other minority youths who had once been rejected for their background or skin color. Of the thousands of applications, the majority came from eager, underfunded kids yearning for the genuine wings that could change their lives. Online, the nickname Raptor Queen for Maya Carter became a symbol of hope. Her image, in that Air Force flight suit, eyes blazing with conviction and a calm, confident smile, adorned posters in flight schools, halls of honor at high schools and universities, and even newly revised textbooks. Student forums, parent groups, and social justice organizations echoed her story as proof that, if you have the courage, the sky must open its doors, no matter who you are or what color you are. At local flight academies, students used Maya's journey for presentations. In career days and lessons on equality, her example became the new benchmark of justice and perseverance. As one teacher in New Orleans put it, "I've never seen my students so fired up to learn about a Black woman pilot transforming America. They say, if she can do it, so can we." Back at Silverwing, Maya personally selected the top cadets from that first wave of applicants. James Bell, the young black man who had once quietly witnessed Maya's humiliation, now led his class. Linda Nguyen, the Asian-American girl who never dreamed she'd step into a simulator, earned a full honors scholarship. Those, once dismissed as mere background scenery for elite privilege, were now front and center in a shared dream. Major media outlets shifted tone overnight. Evening news now hailed Maya Carter as a living legend. Raptor Queen, the pilot who flung America's skies wide open. Silverwing Reborn, from privileged stronghold to beacon of equality. At national conferences on education and social justice, Maya's name stood alongside history's greatest changemakers. Prestigious universities established scholarships in her name. Airlines competed to book her as a keynote speaker. Veterans and veteran pilots clamored to come to Silverwing to inspire the next generation. Meanwhile, the old guard, Candace Roswell, Marcus Drayton, and the influencer clique watched from the sidelines, their resentment bitter as the very values they once denied now guided the new order. Candace quietly left the country, her career fading into obscurity. Drayton retreated to his hometown, with no airline willing to work with him. The influencers, once social media royalty, found every professional door closed to them. Across America, from urban schools to the most remote communities, Maya Carter's story became a collective point of pride and endless inspiration. If she could master the skies, I will never surrender to injustice. That silent pledge now echoes on the lips of millions of young people, making Maya not just a personal legend, but the indelible icon of a new era, one in which your starting line no longer dictates how far you can soar. Golden hour sunlight swept across Silverwing's runway, illuminating the row of labs and the newly unveiled monument bearing Maya Carter's name. The academy buzzed with young faces of every skin tone, every voice, every dream and story. On this special day of honor, thousands gathered in person, and millions more nationwide watched in reverent silence, waiting for every word from the woman who had forever changed America's skies. Maya Carter stood on the raised podium, framed by a bronze statue of herself in an Air Force flight suit, her gaze lifted toward the distant heavens. She gripped the microphone, her voice clear and unwavering before millions of eyes. "I'm not here to blend in, I'm here to clean up. And to clean up, you have to start with the trash." Her words rang out like a clarion call. Cameras cut to Candace Roswell slipping quietly away, her platinum hair melting into the crowd, eyes heavy with regret and bitterness. Marcus Drayton sat slumped in a corner, his face aged by shame, forever banished from the world he once thought was his alone. Maya did not look at them. She simply raised her eyes to the sky and held aloft her pilot's cap in salute. The sky doesn't belong to the privileged, it belongs to those who earn it, to those who fight for their dreams, refuse to bow to injustice, and will not surrender to humiliation. If I, a woman of color once driven from this place, can return and take charge of Silverwing, then any of you, anyone, can reach for the stars if you never stop believing in yourselves. The grounds fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into cheers, thunderous applause, and tears of joy. Young cadets clasped one another's hands, rainbow flags fluttered against the sunset. A new sign rose beside Maya's statue, Silverwing Academy, home of all dreamers. From that moment on, Silverwing ceased to symbolize privilege, prejudice, or division, and became the home of every dream, where anyone could test their wings, regardless of race, background, or hardship. Generations of pilots, engineers, scientists, and future leaders would look to Maya Carter as their guiding flame, an endless source of inspiration. Across media, across cities and rural towns, the image of Maya, the Raptor Queen, quietly captured the hearts of millions, a legacy immune to time. Stories once buried under the dust of scorn were retold as living legend. The sky doesn't belong to privilege. It belongs to the deserving. From then on, whenever someone dares to break boundaries or stand against injustice, people remember Maya Carter, the woman who cleared the skies so that every dream could fly free. Maya Carter's journey, not just one woman breaking the chains of privilege, but a clarion call awakening the hunger for justice, equality, and courage born of adversity. From a silver wing once steeped in prejudice, Maya had transformed it into the home of all dreams, where color, status, or circumstance no longer determine one's destiny. So, what about you? If you face injustice one day, dismissed because of your background or your race, will you bow out, or will you stand up and write your own story, just as Maya Carter did? Share your thoughts, your story, or the lesson you've drawn from this journey in the comments, because you just might inspire someone else. And don't forget to like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss the most powerful inspirational stories each week. Thank you for joining us. See you on the next journey.